Hello, everybody, and welcome to the August 21st, 2022 edition of the Boxing Source Radio Show. I am your host, James Bell, the leader of the Boxing Source on social media. Of course, you can follow us through social media on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and we also have the YouTube page, of course. And this particular podcast, you know how it goes. We will, basically have this podcast available on streaming platforms, multiple streaming platforms that you can listen to on demand at any time. But you know that we got a whole bunch of things to talk about in this particular podcast. Yes, I was in or on location, right, for the fight card that was featured with Omar Figueroa Jr. and Sergey Lipinets. And yeah, we will be going over that particular fight card here in this podcast. But we want to jump into of course, the head story of the weekend, the big story of the weekend, the big fight of the weekend, as it was the rematch between Alexander Usyk and Anthony Joshua for the WBA, IBF, WBO, IBO, and Ring Magazine heavyweight titles. Of course, you have Alexander Usyk coming in as a world champion who defeated Anthony Joshua last year. Undefeated, of course, was the undisputed cruiserweight champion before moving up in weight, having a few fights at heavyweight before being or taking the mandatory position there for the WBO, and for him to get that shot against Anthony Joshua last year. Joshua, of course, two-time unified champion. Had a record of 24-2 with the two losses to Usyk and to Andy Ruiz Jr. He had the immediate rematch against Andy Ruiz Jr. was able to win that. And so after his loss to Alexander Usyk in Tottenham, he wanted the immediate rematch, which ended up being in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. And this particular fight, there was a whole lot of stuff that was going on surrounding the fight, before the fight. Many questions in reference to both fighters. The questions with Alexander Usyk, coming from the Ukraine and all the stuff that was going on in the Ukraine or whatever it is. And him kind of like having, I guess, some distractions of sorts, before this fight was taking place. And with Anthony Joshua, suffering that second loss, saying that, hey, I mean, I want to try something else. I want to have a different head trainer there. In Robert Garcia. Many people know about Robert Garcia and the fighters that he has had under his wing over the course of his training career. Of course, he was a champion of sorts as a fighter and trained multiple champions as a trainer. So he was in there to see what he could do with Anthony Joshua, to see if Joshua could make the proper adjustments to get the win in the rematch. And so, highly anticipated rematch. You had Anthony Joshua as the challenger walking in, pretty much silent, not really speaking. Had the black trunks, walking back and forth around the ring. Alexander Usyk, just being Alexander Usyk, uh, you know, loose and things like that. Um, Going into the fight, you had also other questions about, uh, what are they gonna weigh before the fight? Looks like Alexander Usyk looks like he's much bigger for this fight. He's gonna come in at like 230 pounds, maybe, and kind of like said in the preview that maybe that could be the case with Alexander Usyk, but the weigh in He was around the same as he was for the first fight. Anthony Joshua was pretty much around the same that he was in the first fight, give or take a couple of pounds. So it was more about, okay, who would make the adjustments to, win this fight. And in the first round, you kind of like seen something that I guess people didn't necessarily expect in the first round, and that's Anthony Joshua, kind of like being more agile, so to speak. I know that there's been multiple cases over the course of the history of the Boxing Source radio show where we have a certain guest on here that says that Anthony Joshua doesn't move his head and that he's stationary. And I kept telling that person that Joshua does move his head. He does bob and weave. He does move side to side with his body. And in this particular case, you saw it like much quicker than you usually seen it from Anthony Joshua. Okay. And that he was, moving in and out, trying to move in and out, be more efficient, more effective in his punches against Alexander Usyk. And you've seen the strategy of Anthony Joshua right off the bat. Go to the body, go to the body, work the body. Don't go upstairs, work the body. And that was like entwined in him for those first couple of rounds. And anything that Alexander Usyk did, Anthony Joshua responded by going to the body. Bam. And I thought that I saw like in the first round, there was like one instance where Joshua caught Usyk to the body, and I thought I saw Usyk kind of grimace a little bit. And that kind of like was the sign that, hey, this is going to be the gung ho strategy for Anthony Joshua for this fight. And I had no issues with that in that particular instance. So him having that strategy was very good, very effective over those first few rounds, regardless of what he was doing, mixing things up. Like I said, moving his head up and down, back and forth, throwing the jabs, coming through with 1-2 combinations, going to the body, jabbing upstairs and to the body, giving Usyk different looks. And that to me gave him, I would say, a 3-round head start. In this particular bout, it took until like round 3 or so for Alexander Usyk to get started on what he was wanting to do and what he was trying to do. A couple of things with the offense of Alexander Usyk. One of them was the up jab, coming upwards with his jab, not being, square with the jab, but coming up. It's almost like, having like a punch or it's almost like what I don't know, an upper jab or an upper punch, that it starts in one point and then it ends like much higher than, people would expect. And that is something that kind of like caught Anthony Joshua, while he was going in trying to unleash his offense, and so it would kind of like pause Joshua for a bit there. So Alexander Usyk kind of like had that going for him, was able to, do or expound his like offense a little bit more, being the quicker fighter, still being the faster fighter. And I said, being the more experienced fighter. One of the things that I had before this fight, and that was a key for this fight above anything else, was that when you have a orthodox fighter against a southpaw, I look for foot positioning all the time. And if your front foot is outside of your opponent's front foot, you have two things that you could do. One, you could get out of the pocket without really getting the brunt of your opponent's strong punch. That's one. Number two is you could pretty much like say, once you get into your offense, you could throw your opponent off by being aggressive, coming forward, and stopping your opponent in your tracks by doing that. So it's a defensive and an offensive strategy by having the lead foot on the outside. And Alexander Usyk, just like in the first fight, had that front foot on the outside of Anthony Joshua. And that is what, kind of like had him be nimble and be on his feet, on his toes, in and out and off to the side, just like in the first fight. But the difference is that Anthony Joshua, landed some counters, landed counters to the body, was solid with the counters to the body, trying to wear down Alexander Usyk, you know. And I think that was a key over the course of the bout because even with Alexander Usyk kind of like getting a little bit better of Anthony Joshua in the course of those middle rounds, I would say round 5 through round 7, that Anthony Joshua still was composed, still was locked into with his strategy of going to the body and doing anything he could to get to the body. If it went to like going on the inside, tying Usyk up, throw a couple body shots, get rough, roughhouse Alexander Usyk a couple of times. You seen Usyk, from an instinct, kind of like try to get off of the clinch, but at times that he wasn't able to get off the clinch, Anthony Joshua was able to work the body, get into the solar plexus of Alexander Usyk. There are a couple times where the shots landed low, and Usyk kind of like felt the brunt of those. But that kind of like was, like I said, the lockdown strategy for Anthony Joshua in this fight, and it almost looked like it was paying off in the eighth round. In the eighth round, he was investing to the body. Then he came upstairs, stunned Alexander Usyk upstairs, and then through combinations, lefts, rights, jabs, uppercuts, body shots, getting Usyk to the ropes, working the body, busting him up, and really hurting Alexander Usyk to the point where Usyk, had to hold on to a certain extent there, or else you would have had a knockdown, or like Usyk would have been seriously hurt. And in that, you had the eighth round where Anthony Joshua looked like he had the upper hand in this fight. And to me, this particular instance was even more of an advantage for Anthony Joshua than in the last fight, where he was able to bust up Alexander Usyk and have Usyk bloody in the first fight. But he was in a considerable deficit in that first fight from the eighth round. Here, you could pretty much say that either it was kind of like even going to the end of the eighth, or you could say maybe that, hey, Anthony Joshua had an advantage by the end of the eighth round. It could have been like 5 rounds to 3 or something like that, maybe, or whatever. But that momentum in the eighth round got turned around in the ninth. And you've seen why Alexander Usyk is one of the best pound for pound fighters in the sport. He responded from what was happening in that eighth round, and in the ninth round, kind of like did a repeat of what he did in the last fight. In those first 3 rounds in the last fight, and then the last 3 rounds in the last fight. Be first, be fast, and be out of there. And he was first, fast, and accurate. And that, Anthony Joshua couldn't really deal with the speed and the timing of Alexander Usyk, over the course of that, particular round in round 9. And I pretty much said, watching it live, that, hey, all that momentum that Anthony Joshua had, in that eighth round, Alexander Usyk pretty much got it back. And with that being said, he kind of we kind of like really gone in there and kind of like jumped into getting the momentum back there for the fight. And that was really key because that fight was going to shift in Anthony Joshua's favor to the point where he could have scored a knockdown, or he could have been able to knock out Alexander Usyk to become the 3-time unified heavyweight champion. But that ninth round was huge for Usyk for him to get back in it. In the 10th round, it was a little bit more of that same thing. But Usyk's energy level was still kind of down. But the thing with Anthony Joshua was, the stuff that he was doing over the course of those 8 rounds, it kind of like got to him. And you've seen a couple of mistakes there from Anthony Joshua in that he was standing upright and he was not moving the body like he was doing in those first 4 or 5 rounds. So he was still, kind of like stationary or stiff in a sense, which kind of like opened him up for the offense of Alexander Usyk and allowed Alexander Usyk to move out of the way if he needed to. But in the 11th round, you seen both guys, still kind of fatigued from what was happening in those first 10 rounds. I felt like it was pretty much like a even or pretty much a really close fight up until that 11th round. 11th and 12th, you kind of seen both guys, give whatever they could give, try to be accurate and things like that. But try to be active, cautious, and I would say try to, I guess, score the most points. Depending, how you were watching it, worldwide or whatever it was. They said like multiple times that it didn't matter if it was like round 1, 3, 7, or 11. Anthony Joshua is very dangerous, so you can't like really be too lazy or lackadaisical there with Anthony Joshua. So I think that was one thing that Usyk was, thinking about in those last couple of rounds, and both of those guys were able to finish, the bout, finish the 12 rounds, and it was like I said, it was a very highly contested, close bout. For me, I felt like it was closer than the first fight, and I thought it was better than the first fight. And I thought the first fight was, a very very good fight. It was just that Alexander Usyk clearly won that first fight. And here, you had the judges' scorecards come in there, and you had a 116-112 score for Alexander Usyk. You had a 115-113 score for Anthony Joshua. And of course, you had a 115-113 score for Alexander Usyk to win by split decision and keep those belts that he had, the WBA, WBO, IBF, and IBO, and become the Ring Magazine heavyweight champion. So he's still undefeated now with the record of 20-0 in his professional career. Anthony Joshua falls to 24-3. And he just falls short. Now, of course, part of the story was about what happened, I guess, after the fight. So immediately after the fight, Anthony Joshua went on, I guess, Super Saiyan mode or Goku mode or whatever it is, and started to be upset about what happened, saying that he felt like he won the fight and that he was very upset. And then after that, he pretty much realized what he did, turned around, came back, had a speech afterwards in the ring, and then in the post-fight presser, he pretty much said like, "Hey, I mean, I did all I could in this particular instance, and I fell short, and it just was really, really upsetting that what I did just didn't get the job done." And that's pretty much what he was saying in the post-fight press conference there that you could see on Sky Sports or whatever it is. And the thing is like, man, I said this after the fight. I said, hey, Anthony Joshua fought pretty much, I would say, among the best fights that he could. Like, that would have been a great performance against any other heavyweight that's out there. It's just that he lost to a better fighter, and he lost to the best fighter in the world, and Alexander Usyk. Like I said, you have a decorated fighter, Olympic gold medalist, um, decorated as a semi-pro. World, what is it like World Boxing Super Series? Was able to win the undisputed championships at cruiserweight, became the unified champion here at heavyweight, and was one of the multiple guys to do that, come up from a lower weight class, whether it's light heavyweight or cruiserweight, and become either a unified or a multi-belt world champion at the heavyweight division, like Michael Moore, like Evander Holyfield. So it's not like it hasn't happened before. But Alexander Usyk has been one of the top pound for pound fighters over the past 3 or 4 years, and he might be one of the better fighters in the sport of boxing that we've seen. Well, of course, this decade or whatever it is, or the short decade, but in the past 10 or 15 years, so that goes back to like 2007. People don't realize like how good Alexander Usyk's been, in the ring, pretty much as a professional or in the gym. Like people don't know about the gym stories about him and Latimer Klitschko. Like he was boxing circles around Klitschko. So you have that type of stuff going on, then you know how good Alexander Usyk is. But I'll go more into the thing with both Alexander Usyk and Anthony Joshua. But I have one guest in here that one particular person requests for this guest to come in and say something smart. So I don't know when that person's going to come in. So I request the boxing academic to say something smart.
The thing is, he never around when I say something smart. That's his fault. The early bird get the worm and get this knowledge.
Yeah. Oh man. Man. What's up, man? But yeah, I do have you on here, man. And hey, I gotta say this, man. Yo, the boy was moving his head, he was ducking down, he was moving side to side at the beginning of this fight, so he was doing that thing, but he was trying to stick with the strategy of going to the body. That's something that he kind of informed Alexander Usyk before the fight, and I thought it was a good strategy, right? But there was one thing that I didn't see from Anthony Joshua that I wanted to see from Anthony Joshua is to be better with controlling the distance and trying to fight off the back foot. Because if Alexander Usyk is going to come forward with the attack or with the up jab, then you got to be able to have your stance out wide enough so that when he throws that jab, you could catch him. You could catch him square. There was one time that he was able to catch him square, but that, kind of like came around that 8th round where, he, tried to go in and try to, methodically break down Alexander Usyk and, try to get it. Actually, that kind of reminded me of when Manny Pacquiao had Jeff Horn hurt in that 9th round or whatever it was, but you just have two fighters at two different levels of experience. Anthony Joshua, yeah, of course, he's been at the pinnacle and fought top fighter at the top fighter at the top fighter. But once you go up against someone with the experience and has the level of intangibles of Alexander Usyk, there's only so much that you can do, especially when he's a southpaw. So what was your take on it, boxing academic?
So I will explain my take on the fight in 1 second. I just want to make sure that I say that I know Anthony Joshua is probably taking this real hard. You can see by his antics after the match was over. You can see he didn't know what to do in terms of he didn't know to be angry because that's how he really was feeling. Like, dang, I lost. He didn't know to try to be the gentleman, the image that he displays in front of everyone else. You know, he was going through the emotions, and then even at the press conference, it's like he's wrapping his mind around what's next. You know, like as if boxing defines him as a person. You know, boxing is his profession. Boxing tells us some intangibles about him. Yes, it tells us things about his character, but we are what we choose to do in any given moment. Uh, yes, if we have a bunch of different, if we have a history of actions, and that history of actions converge to a certain outcome, then you probably are what your the history of your outcomes converge to. But in general, we can choose to be what we want to be in any given moment. Like, let's say he was a coward yesterday. I'm not saying he was, I'm just saying hypothetically. If he choose to be courageous, which I'd argue that he chose to be courageous in that fight, the thing that betrayed him, which is if you were going to take the approach of pressing the issue, to me, you had to make sure that you could go 15 rounds. You may not go 15 rounds throwing as many punches as Usyk, but you had to make sure that you're able to go 15 rounds throwing X amount of punches. And, you know, yes, adrenaline and stuff probably stopped him and, you know, made him more drained and stuff. Getting hit in the face probably made him more drained as well, too. Exerting himself to try to stop Usyk made him more drained. But at the end of the day, if you were going to take the approach that he took, there's not many chances that you win outside of knocking him out. That approach that he took would yield a 12 round success over 12 rounds. Now, if he knocked him down and he was like sort of like how what's Usyk boy name? Lomachenko and the guy who beat him.
Teofimo Lopez.
And Teofimo got an early lead. And so he just was holding on just to stay up because he knew he had a high enough lead. And as long as he don't fall and he stay up, it's a good chance that he gonna win this fight because he built the lead. Now, Usyk had fought him before, so Usyk kind of knew or expected who Joshua would be. So I don't think that if he had that same mentality in the first fight, it may be a different story because at that point Usyk is probably more cautious. Usyk, you know what I'm saying? He's not like he doesn't already have his ticket written. I think that the strategy of going to the body was a great strategy. Usyk has always been weak to the body. He showed that by the Del Boy fight. It was maybe another fight that I saw him get hurt to the body too. The thing is, the strategy was working for Joshua, working to the point to where every time Joshua threw a punch to the body, it truly affected Usyk. But then you get to the reality of the situation. Joshua's endurance betrayed him. The moment where the fight is probably even going into round 9 and you got to win these championship rounds, Joshua's endurance betrayed him. And again, I say, if you were going to take the strategy that he took, he had to be able to go 15 rounds because he had it. He was there. He fought a great fight, like as you said. He shouldn't hold his head down. I mean, let me say this now. Joshua said, and what I inferred from what he said, he had a little bit more to give. Maybe he did. There were times where he wasn't necessarily throwing. He was just, Joshua's mentality makes him, when he's tired, he sort of folds us in a sense. And he just is like, let me survive. As opposed to him doing like like other warriors that we see do, Marcos Maidana, anybody like that. If I'm gonna go out, I'm gonna go out swinging. That ain't him. Okay, cool. But he was there round 9, at the end of round 9. It was probably tied, or I don't know what my scorecard was. I can look down at it, but what I'm saying is he had the momentum. He had him hurt to the body. Round 10 comes, he can't capitalize off that again because he's extremely exhausted. Usyk pressed the issue. All he can do is just say, what I thought he was going to do is take a breather round in 10, which I was like, okay, you can take a breather round, get back at it round 11, and just throw body shots. Even if he would have just had his hands up or however he had his hands, and all he did was just throw, just lugging shots to the body. Like, what he really needed to do is easy for me to say. Let me be very clear about that. It's easy for me to say sitting on the sidelines here. But what he really needed to do, in my opinion, when he's extremely tired, is the same thing that Tyson Fury did to Deontay Wilder. Tyson Fury noticed that Deontay Wilder needs space to get off his punches. No different from Usyk. Usyk needs space to sort of, wow you, pop, hit you with a punch. Wow you, pop, hit you with a punch. Joshua needed to some way, somehow, either bend down to the side and go in, put his shoulder on Usyk and close the distance to where him and Usyk are right there touching, and Usyk can't throw nothing. And then as either Usyk goes out or however, when he's touching Usyk on his shoulder and like just right there touched on Usyk's shoulder, boom, throw a big body shot. All he needed to do was grapple Usyk them last few rounds, hold Usyk, get him close enough, boom, throw the big shot. It would have been a different spirit toward the end had he got that adjustment to say, you're winning. Let's not worry about the head right now. We see that your body shots are affecting him. I know you're tired. Do me a favor, load up to the body.
Well, hey, that's Robert Garcia, man. I wonder what Robert Garcia was saying after the end of that 9th round, because that strategy right there would have been it. There was another one that I was thinking about that he could have did, but I'm gonna jump on that a little bit later. I wanted to add in Terrell from Tampa coming through with the man, I can't even really see that, man. Like, to be honest with you, Terrell, that thing on the right looked like a biscuit. I don't know what that is. I'm talking about on the live YouTube discussion. We had the icons for people. It looks like Terrell got, a little food thing going on, but I can't really make what that is there from Terrell, though. You know what I mean? See if we could jump on here real quick. I don't know. I think he got something going on right now. But, well, with that being said, there was like 2 things that I wanted to see from Anthony Joshua in that 10th round after Usyk kind of like got the momentum back into, even or closer to his favor, right? Joshua had his hands up a couple times, but like I wanted to see him throw that punch, like throw one punch to the body, throw one punch to the body. It could be a jab to the body or something. Just stick with that strategy. That strategy was gone in those 9th and 10th rounds. You didn't see that. Like I was saying, sometime earlier. All the stuff that he was doing in those first 4 or 5 rounds was pretty much out the door in the 9th and 10th round. And I'm like, wait, I wonder if Robert Garcia said, hey, yo, what's going on? Like, what you was doing and those first few rounds was working. Why aren't you, getting back on that? Or if you're seeing that Anthony Joshua, needs to catch up, because I mean we're heavyweights. They're heavyweights, using a whole lot of energy to throw these punches. These guys ain't like 215 or 225 or something like that. They're like 240 plus at that particular size. So it's gonna take more energy out of them, exerting that energy. So if you're trying to get that, energy back, try to, like you said, grab Alexander Usyk, try to get close to him and tie him up. Don't let him get that offense off. Tie him up, throw a couple punches to the body, and get off. Tie him up, throw a couple punches to the body, get him off. And at the same time, if you try to push him off, throw a jab while he's getting out of there. Sometimes you got to be able to throw 2 or 3 punches at a time, but make sure those 2 or 3 punches are the most effective punches that you could throw at that particular point, because if you're trying to get your energy back, you can't allow Alexander Usyk to get his offense off when you already know he's a faster fighter. He has a better feet, or they say feet work, or whatever it is. So you got to do what it takes in order for that offense to not really do much to you. And in those 9th and 10th rounds, he didn't quite do that. And I'm like, as much competition that he's gone through over the course of his professional career, there are some things that he just has not completely grasped yet in his 26 professional fights or whatever it is. So you got to be able to say, if you're seeing this happening to Anthony Joshua in the ring, you got to say, hey, this is going on. If you're Robert Garcia, or there was like another guy that was like a chief second or whatever it is, that was actually part of Joshua's previous team when Rob McCracken was a trainer. He kept that guy on. And I'm like, okay, why aren't you seeing that in those 9th and 10th rounds? Because that, to me, pretty much shifted the fight in Usyk's favor, to the point where it got to that split decision. This wasn't, anything like the first fight where Alexander Usyk was just blitzing Anthony Joshua in the 9th round and the 10th round, and then Joshua was just out of it by the 11th. And so in the 12th round in that first fight, you almost thought that he would have got knocked down or he would have got stopped. But here, he had enough energy to throw a couple more punches to, really still try to affect Usyk. Not to the point of where, like they were saying on the Zone Live, like, oh, at any moment you could see Anthony Joshua throw a big punch or whatever it is. Nah, you got to be able to be effective enough so that the punches don't have to be really powerful. They just have to be timely, and they have to be effective, that it would kind of like, stop the momentum of Alexander Usyk. And we just didn't see that in those rounds 9, 10, and 11. To me, to where you had Alexander Usyk get the upper hand. I haven't necessarily seen the scorecards yet. I'm gonna see if I could, look for them on here to see how they kind of scored those last few rounds. They're saying. Yeah, I'm gonna try to look for it here. Looking like it says like it came down to the last round on a lot of these scorecards. Yeah, so I'm trying to figure this thing out for it. So yeah, it was just that last round where that was pretty much it. As far as like what kind of like decided the bout. One judge could have had it like 10-9. It could have been like 114 even, and it could have been a draw. So that was like real close.
Can I share my scorecard after you get done?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
So I had it 5 rounds for Joshua, 5 for Usyk, and 2 even rounds that I figured it just depends on what one likes, but it could go either way. So to me, I felt all the scorecards were very reasonable because if I look at my scorecard and one of the rounds goes to Joshua or Usyk, then you win the fight 115, 113. But if the 2 rounds that are tied go to Usyk, then you win it 116, 112. It's 2 rounds versus 1 round.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, them 2 tied rounds, it's in the realm of possibility that all them scores was possible. Like I felt like it could have been all over the place. And even there were a couple more rounds that it just also depended on what you like. But the rounds that I felt Joshua won, he obviously landed body shots and he was countering and feinting and stuff. And like, let's say for example, round 3, he did a real good job feigning, counting to the body, and he had a real good like shot placement. But then he had one lapse at the end where he got hit with a big shot. But all the work that he did through the round to me won him that round.
Mm-hmm.
So 5 Joshua, 5 Usyk, and then 2 up in the air rounds. So all those scorecards were very reasonable. And again, that's why I say Joshua, he ain't win it, but he shouldn't kill himself, or place like something that this says something about him. Because I mean, yeah, he probably could have gave a little bit more, but he did good. Maybe in his inside, he knew that he could throw more punches or leave more out there. I can't speak on that. That's only he can only answer that for himself.
Mm-hmm.
But at least in terms of having the mindset going into it and sort of facing adversity in the middle and trying to overcome at the end, I would like to say that he reached a plateau physically. Obviously, he could have went more, yes, but I'm just saying I would like to say he reached a plateau, and then again, that's what betrayed him. But good fight. I mean, he shouldn't. I get it. People put their identity in this stuff, but
Mm-hmm.
they should not, in my opinion, should do that. Like I think that he's worth more than to put his identity in losing the fight to where he performed very well and was 1 round on one scorecard and two rounds on another scorecard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it was like 7-5 and the 8-4. On another scorecard, and some people felt like the 8-4 in favor of Usyk was more like it, but my thing was I was like I don't see how that could have been the case. I thought it would be either 7-5 either way or 6-6 because the first 3 rounds I really just felt like Joshua was doing the better work, especially in the first 2, and that particular strategy, worked very well for him in those first few rounds. It just took until like the tail end of round 3 going into round 4 was when Alexander Usyk was, starting to do those things that he was doing, and I mean, it just felt like, he was the, overall better fighter in this case. I mean, I said it like in my personal page on social media. I said that you know like he Usyk just went through like a couple of parts of the fight where Joshua just got the upper hand, and him just getting back, having a response in the ninth and then the 10th and the 11th. Um, that just separated him from Anthony Joshua, and it kind of like goes into the level of experience that he's had over the course of his boxing career, amateur, semi-pro, and pro. That he's faced guys that are as big as Anthony Joshua. He's faced guys that have like a certain skill set, and he's able to make the adjustments. And for me, it's that Alexander Usyk is the fighter that people think that Vasyl Lomachenko is. That's my part. Alexander Usyk is the fighter that people think or thought that Vasyl Lomachenko is or was. Like Vasyl Lomachenko is the Matrix. Oh, he could do this. He could dodge this. He could do that. But Alexander Usyk to me is more of a complete package than Vasyl Lomachenko is. And Usyk, over the course of his career, doesn't have anywhere near the credit that uh, Vasyl Lomachenko does. Even now, when Usyk could potentially be the top pound for pound fighter in the sport.
I mean, Usyk is what you're describing. It's relative based on relatively what's around him. He's the best based on the big lugs and stuff around him. Um, Lomachenko don't have that luxury because them smaller guys are like really athletic and do kind of like superhuman ish type of things. The big guys, he's the one of the more agile big guys, agile on his feet, agile on his hands, agile with his body movements, you know, shifty. He's a smaller guy who got a little, little weight, but big enough to keep people honest.
Yeah, yeah, that's the thing. About Usyk is he'll have the movements or the timing that keeps his opponents honest. Regardless of who he's fighting, and it. I think that kind of like intangible, keeping your opponent thinking all the time, is just an attribute that few fighters have, especially in this era. In that Usyk is able to, kind of like do that against, multiple styles and multiple fighters. He was able to do that against the likes of, Michael Hunter, who was a, fairly decorated amateur. Marco Huck, that was, one of the better cruiserweights in his time period. You know, beating guys like Krzysztof Glowacki, who was another, notable cruiserweight, Brightus, Gasayev, going up to, beating Tony Bellew and then Derek Chisora before fighting Anthony Joshua. So, I mean, he's kind of like had multiple years of high level fights. Since like I said, since 2016, it's been like high level fights for Alexander Usyk, and he's been able to, come through each time, either with a stoppage or a unanimous decision. This is like the first time, actually, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, this is the first time in his professional career where the fight ended up in a split decision. So for that to kind of like happen is um, I guess one thing there for Anthony Joshua, um, for him to like get to that point against a guy that is as decorated as Alexander Usyk is. But now you just got to see like what's out there, I guess, or what's next for Alexander Usyk. We know about the situation with the WBC title. They still got to make a decision there with Tyson Fury, and given the result of what happened here, I'm not too certain that Tyson Fury wants to go in there against Alexander Usyk. I know it was kind of like spoken about after the fight, with Anthony Joshua in the post-fight press conference that, he's like really disappointed because, a number of people in the UK was looking forward to him winning this fight and then eventually fighting Tyson Fury for undisputed. But now you got Alexander Usyk, there and um, still as the champ. And so it's like, okay, Tyson Fury, are you gonna come back and fight this southpaw? where you've had issues with southpaws, you've had issues, fighting guys while punching down, and you're fighting a guy that's much more nimble than those guys that you had issues with. So it's like, do I really want to come back? Uh, and it's gonna be for less money, probably for significantly less money. I don't know about all that. So you might, I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up, vacating that WBC belt and gives Mauricio Suleiman that phone call here in the next few days. But we'll
Hey,
see, man.
hey James,
It-
I need you to put more respect on the best heavyweight's name right now. I need you to put more respect on his name.
Alexander Usyk.
No,
Okay.
Tyson Fury. I need you to put more respect on Tyson Fury's name.
Well,
Tyson
well,
Fury
uh,
is not the Tyson Fury of old. While the fights with Deontay Wilder have taken something out of him, I think what he understood in that fight, which was seen with Dylan White, is that I'm big for a reason. Let me use my size, which is not necessarily what he was doing when he fought Chisora, when he fought the black guy Cunningham.
US or USS Cunningham or USSR Cunningham, like Oscar De La Hoya says.
Yeah. So what I'm saying, I think Tyson Fury is licking his chops because he understands in the fight, he gonna do the same thing he did to Wilder to an extent. He gonna do this same thing, which is lean on Usyk. He gonna lean on Usyk and he gonna make Usyk work and work and work and work. Every chance he get, he gonna lean on Usyk, probably hit him in the stomach and stuff. Like, Tyson Fury gonna use his weight and Usyk gonna have to keep um squatting this big man off of him.
Hmm. And I think Fury will do well. For Fury, he has a much better chance of doing what I thought Anthony Joshua would do is keep his lead foot to the outside. But also, the thing with Tyson Fury is he could fight orthodox and he could fight southpaw. So he can switch things up at any point.
And he
So
will use his distance.
yeah, that's the other thing too. He will use his distance. So yeah, I feel like Tyson Fury should really try to take advantage of this particular opportunity and say, okay, yeah, I know that I've won every single belt in the heavyweight division, but I could be the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. I could say that I've beaten the top fighters, pretty much the top fighters in the heavyweight division of my era. You know, I mean that's like surefire Hall of Fame stuff right there. So I don't see why he wouldn't like take advantage of that. Like my thing is, you fought you fought Tom Schwartz. You had no issues fighting Tom Schwartz. You had no issues fighting Otto Wallin and whatever it is. You know, um, but you don't want to face Alexander Usyk for a chance to become the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. Yeah, that's something tough, man. That's tough for me. That's
Jay,
tough.
are you spreading propaganda? This man do not want to face Usyk.
Yeah, like it's hard. It's hard to kind of fathom a guy that says there is no one born from one's mother that could beat me or whatever that saying says. You know, um, although that kind of is funny because that means he says like not even his dad could beat him, his brothers could beat him, and nobody. So um, so yeah, I gotta figure that out because to me, here's the other thing too. I think it's much easier to make that fight between Tyson Fury and Alexander Usyk. And if shoot, it's August, it's late, mid kind of tail end of August, you could try to have that fight before the end of the year, and it could be for the undisputed championship. Why not have it? you could be the undisputed champion. You would have had the knockout win over Dylan White in Wembley Stadium. So why not have something with Alexander Usyk at Wembley Stadium or Tottenham or whatever it is for the undisputed heavyweight championship? Why not? You know, um, that's the thing. Uh, I mean, Usyk, like I said, it's easier for him to like have those type of fights. Yeah, he has his guys there, and Alex Krasniuk and who is it? Igas Clemens. As the guys that managed his career, but we got to see like what happens with the whole situation because he's going to be going through the same thing that Anthony Joshua was going through as unified champ. Mandatory after mandatory after mandatory after mandatory. Um, and so like now, yeah, first off, I don't think there's really a mandatory that's due because Joe Joyce and Joseph Parker haven't fought yet. You know, um, IBF, you had the IBF situation. That's still up for grabs to me because you had that fight as a co-feature bout with Philip Hergovich, and man, oh, that was something. But I'll get into that a little bit later. But I'm checking out the situation there. WBA, of course, you got Daniel Dubois as like the WBA champion. So I don't know, maybe they'll try to have Usyk fight Daniel Dubois. Who knows? But yeah, that's the thing though. That's a Frank Warren fighter. So Frank Warren can say, hey, either I could have Tyson Fury fighting Alexander Usyk for undisputed, or I could have Tyson Fury fighting Daniel Dubois for having that WBA thing, uh, uh, kind of like honored. So pretty much like Frank Warren kind of like holds the cards in the heavyweight division right now. That kind of like was said earlier that Frank Warren could have either Tyson Fury or Daniel Dubois fighting Alexander Usyk. Whether it could be later this year or early next year. But that's kind of like the heavyweight situation at this point because that IBF thing, man, that was a whole mess. Like I said, you have Philip Hergovich in there against Zalay Zhang, and man, all that hype that folks was talking about with Philip Hergovich, man, that hype went completely out the window against Zalay Zhang, right? Zalay Zhang, man, look, man, yo, I people thought that Philip Hergovich was the goods, man. Zalay Zhang out there, yeah, he was undefeated, 24-0. He's a 6'6" guy, coming from China, aspiring to be like a world heavyweight champion, undefeated. Had that little incident last year with Jerry Force that ended up being a majority draw, you know. But here against Philip Hergovich, Hergovich was having a lot of trouble against Zalay Zhang and was getting rocked a couple times. Yeah, man. He was getting rocked a few times. There were times when, Zhang was hitting him and it looked like Philip Hergovich had like a mental lapse, like he wasn't, in the fight or something. And I was like, man, this dude here, he should have been able to take out Zalay Zhang, just be, aggressive enough, active enough, accurate enough. He would have been able to stop Zalay Zhang, especially in those last few rounds. Zalay Zhang was breathing heavy, breathing out his mouth, sucking wind, and he still was able to go through 12 rounds with Philip Hergovich. And at the end of that 12th round, Zalay Zhang ran into the ropes and like slumped his body over the ropes. I was like, man, this dude should not have been able to go 12 rounds with Philip Hergovich. I'm sorry, y'all, but he shouldn't have been able to go through 12 rounds with Philip Hergovich. I know Zhilei Zhang was like a southpaw in there against the orthodox fighter. I know that there was some issues with the ring and condensation in the ring or whatever it was. Still didn't matter. If Philip Hergovich is that dude, if Philip Hergovich is the guy that they said, oh, this guy wouldn't fight him for the mandatory challenger position. Luis Ortiz wouldn't fight him for the mandatory position. Martin Bacoli wouldn't fight him. Going down the list, Cabello. Okay, if all of these guys were reluctant to fight him, and you end up with the guy that's at the very bottom of the IBF rankings, the top 15 or whatever, he's number 15 is Zhilei Zhang, and you mean to tell me that you couldn't take him out? I'm sorry, but man, look here. Philip Hergovich was probably favored to knock out Zhilei Zhang in this fight, and he couldn't knock him out. And it almost looked like at one point, that Zhilei Zhang could have knocked him down or whatever it is. Actually, I thought there was one point where dude slipped. Yeah, that's what it was. Dude slipped, and yeah, he could have. Oh man, it was just and Philip Hergovich still ended up with the unanimous decision win. I'm like, nah, man. Like YSM Sports Media says here in the live, yeah, Zhilei Zhang won that fight. And actually, wait a minute, didn't Zhilei Zhang score a knockdown in the first round? Let me check. I thought for certain that Zhilei Zhang scored a knockdown in the first round, and I'm like, man. Dude was able to score a knockdown in the first round, and they still were able to, get the decision for for Philip Hergovich. I'm like, come on, man. This ain't yep, that's what it was. Cause in the first round, Zhilei Zhang like hit Philip Hergovich with the right. It kind of grazed over the top part of Zhilei Zhang, Hergovich's head, and Hergovich went down, to the canvas, or went down to one knee. So Zhilei Zhang had like a 10-8 round, was in the lead off rip, and Philip Hergovich was trying to catch up from that point, but I thought that he was going to be able to eventually overwhelm Zhilei Zhang and seriously hurt him and end up stopping him. Nope. He ended up getting caught a few times, got caught with some uppercuts. I thought Zhilei Zhang would have hit him with some more uppercuts in the tail end of those rounds. But there were like spurts where Zhilei Zhang would throw 3-punch combinations that would catch Philip Hergovich. I'm like, man, I don't believe this. This is supposed to be the top-rated contender for the IBF. Man, nah, man, I don't see it. But they ended up having a unanimous decision win for Philip Hergovich in there. Boxing Academic, I'm not sure if you saw that fight, but if you didn't see that fight, and if you would have saw that fight, you would have said, Philip Hergovich ain't that good. I'm telling you.
Well, I saw the fight, but I mean, everything is relative. I think that Zhang is a man who has a very strong will. And you say he was 6'6"?
Yeah, 6'6".
He a big boy. He got a strong will. Obviously, he ain't the type who, you remember the dude who Deontay Wilder knocked out, and it's the first time that somebody had knocked him out, and every other time he was taking like all of Deontay Wilder's shots.
Well, you mean the small dude Spilka?
Not Spilka, the big dude.
Shoot. It was like after that one.
Whatever that dude name was.
Washington?
No, it was a lighter skinned guy.
Oh, he eventually got stopped. Well, he eventually got stopped in the 11th, man. What's his name? This is that fight in Alabama, wasn't it?
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, even that dude didn't fall. The referee stopped
Yeah,
the fight. He waved the
yeah,
fight off.
yeah,
But after that,
yeah. That was Duhapa.
two hoppers. Yeah. So after that, Duhaupas was compromised. His chin was compromised. Deontay Wilder had broke that chin. But all I'm saying, in that fight, Duhaupas have never really been hurt. He always took good shots. Deontay Wilder had to hit him like 20 times flush. Like Tyson Fury at least fall with it, and then he get back up and like ignite something in himself. Duhaupas was taking it,
Hmm.
and then the body ain't meant to take that, so he stopped taking it. So Jong remind me of Duhaupas in that sense, to him taking punishment.
Mm.
And he would be a guy, like, let's say if Wilder fought him, he would have to hit him. Well, he might be a more compromised, but it would take a puncher like that to like severely compromise Jong. Because I think his will and his chin, his punch resistance is moderately high right now. Very
Yeah.
similar to Slugfist.
Joe Joyce says,
He has a moderately high punch resistance.
yeah, punch
But,
resistance. Yeah.
but let him get in with Wilder or somebody who can punch, and he take all them shots. It ain't gonna be the same.
Well, I mean, the thing with Zalea Zhang, he had like a couple of conditions that happened during the course of his fight with Jerry Forrest. Uh, that he had like a bad kidney or something like that, or something.
I think he
Kidney.
was dehydrated.
It was severely dehydrated. Man, it was, yeah, it was like some crazy stuff that happened. During that fight. Yeah, it had kidney failure, liver damage, and anemia. That's what he said. I was like, what? Like, man, he got through that. I was like, man, that's crazy. But still he was able to catch Philip Hergovich a good number of times over the course of that fight. And I just felt like, hey, he should have been able to pull off that fight and got that win.
I mean, Hergovich was more skillful,
Yeah.
but his punches wasn't doing a lot to Jong.
Oh, they were. They were. Brother Terrell, looks like you may be back in the scene here.
Yeah, I'm definitely in. So you guys got to excuse me because I was sitting here at home. Somebody hit me, and I wandered off to the corner of the ring, just like Hergovic did, just one around endlessly, looking around, looking up in the sky. I've never seen that before. The only thing that reminds me of is when Lennox Lewis fought what's my brother name that went crazy in the ring. Goodness. You guys remember that?
Oliver McCall?
There you go.
Yeah.
I mean, he
I thought you were going to say that point when early this year when Luis Ortiz knocked the Sonic rings out of Charles Martin. I thought you were going to say that.
but kind of got what you guys are saying. Hergovic, I tell you what, it's one thing to have a good team behind you, marketing you, push you, make you the so-called boogeyman of the division. And then when you fight put on the big stage where everyone gets to see you and you get exposed. I mean, and honestly, Hergovic, he looks the part. Big, strong guy, everything. Looks scary and all that stuff like that. But bottom line, skills pay the bills. Whether that be your boxer puncher, whatever your game is and stuff like that. But Hergovic definitely lost that fight. And I don't see how they even gave that fight to him. Now, I'm not saying it was a wide margin that he would have lost by, but clearly Hergovic lost that fight. I mean, Zhang definitely did enough to throughout the course of the fight to win that fight. I mean, like you said, Jace, he had the first round knockdown on Hergovic with the hit behind the head, which wasn't called, but it's boxing, things like that. And there's so many times where Zhang had those nice inside uppercuts on Hergovic that just gave him trouble, and not just that, Hergovic had those distance spells at least 4 or 5 times throughout the fight where he would just get hit and wander around, like what the hell's going on and everything. And even at that point, Ronnie Shields had to just kind of implore him, get back in it, get back in it, get back in it. I mean, and Hergovic had his moments during the fight where he had Zhang hurt a few times. He definitely had his moments. He did. But bottom line, he did not win that fight. And when they announced the decision, I was like, wow. And it just, I don't know. It just kind of goes. And as we talk about more fights, the Joshua fight, just scoring, a split decision. I didn't expect that. I mean, to me, that was a clear-cut decision that Usyk had won that fight. Clear-cut. But somehow they managed to give one of the scorecards to Joshua. Whatever. The same thing with the Zhang Horgan fight. He did not win the fight. Not at all. Not at all. And like you guys were saying, that this supposed to be the number one contender for the IBF? Nah, not at all. Not at all. No one's scared of this guy. Not at all.
Nah. And I mean, like I was saying, I mean, even before like any fight with Filip Hrgović was, pretty much going down, they were like trying to see about setting up an IBF final eliminator, and he couldn't really set it up. Luis Ortiz was out there. He couldn't set it up with him. Joe Joyce and Joseph Parker were pretty much there for the WBO, so those guys couldn't be available. Frank Sanchez wasn't available. This Cabello guy wasn't available or whatnot. So I'm like, well, if you're going to the bottom of the barrel there for, a fighter, and they can't really approve that as a final eliminator. Now you see where, Filip Hrgović is at this particular point of his career. Now those other fighters might be more inclined to fight him, because they seen what Zhang was able to do. But I don't know, maybe Zhang being a tall southpaw guy probably gave, Filip Hrgović issues that he just had some time that he had to adjust to. There was like one other thing on that fight, I gotta see about here, and if I'm not mistaken, I thought his trainer there is, that he kind of was trying to look and see what he was doing there, and man, I don't know, man. He just couldn't really make adjustments there against Zhang, man. I just couldn't really, see what he like Hrgović could do against someone that might have a little bit more intangibles than Zhang does. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I mean, as we know in this day and age, I don't know what heavyweight is in shapes the same shape from round 1 to round 12 other than Usyk, right? So definitely win was definitely an issue for both fighters. We know that. Like I said at the end of the fight, Zhang just practically ran to his corner and fell out and pretty much fell out and everything, which is so funny. Like, damn, this is finally over.
Yeah, it's finally over, man. He was like breathing out of his mouth in like the 7th and 8th round. I'm like, man, how can you not see what's happening here with Zhang? Work this dude, use some energy, sap the rest of his energy out. It don't even have to be a punch with like a lot of emphasis. The amount of exhaustion that could have been through Zhang, you would have been able to score a knockdown on him. But
I tend to think for Hrgović, just trying to live up to that hype that's been put on him. Probably walked into this fight, think he's going to walk. Even though Zhang is physically formidable, we know that at 6'6", 260, whatever he is, and stuff like that. But still, Hrgović just believing that walk to the fight, eating that high cake and stuff like that, and thinks, oh, I'm just going to punch him, he's going to knock down. And when Hrgović started to land some good power shots on Zhang, and he didn't fall down, well, what do you do next? What do you do next? Right? This guy's because the guy's still there and still there on top of that, bring back plenty of power against you. So that kind of in a sense kind of suggests me he's not mentally strong in that regard because he faced some great opposition coming back at him in that fight, and that just kind of forced him like, oh well, everybody else fell down. He's supposed to fall down. He's not falling down. What's going to happen? Let me let me try to figure something out. And then at the same time, his win became a struggle for him as well too. So it's definitely.
Yeah, he was throwing like one or two punches at a time for a majority of those rounds, and kind of like walking around, standing, not really doing anything, and that allowed Zhang to like land some jabs, land a couple of lead left hands and that type of stuff to the point where I just felt like Zhang kind of like had that fight. We should have. I thought they should have just gave that fight to him, but they didn't. The judges gave that fight unanimously to Filip Hrgović, as two of those judges gave him 8 rounds, and the other judge gave him 7 rounds. I'm like, man, I don't know what y'all was looking at in that fight, So that was just a crazy joint there. You also had in that fight card Callum Smith going up against Matthew Bauderlique in a WBC light heavyweight title eliminator bout, and he that was an easy fight for him, man. That was easy work there for Callum Smith, as that was like a 4th round knockout there. He's there with Buddy McGirt or whatnot, moving to 29 wins and 1 loss. Second knockout victory there at the 175-pound division. Puts him in there in position for the WBC light heavyweight championship. Of course, you got Artur Beterbiev there as a unified champ. You got to see what's going to be up with Beterbiev by the end of this year or something like that. But Callum Smith looks like he's kind of like really used to being there at 175. I know some people were saying like he was cutting down a good little bit to make 168 for those last few fights that he's had, against John Ryder and against Canelo Alvarez. But ever since he's been here at 175, he's kind of like been doing things very well there at light heavyweight. So we'll see what's in store there for Callum Smith. I know that he wants to kind of like be in there for fighting for the world title, but that might take a little bit of time for that to develop. So I guess his promoter there, Eddie Hearn, wants to really get him active, so to speak. But I don't see it. I don't see anything in reference to him fighting someone like a Joshua Buatsi. But Eddie Hearn was trying to have Joshua Buatsi fight Dimitri Bivol, but nope, that ain't happening. As Dimitri Bivol and Zurdo Ramirez look like they have come to terms with the deal. So why not have Callum Smith there against Josh Buatsi? I bet Eddie Hearn is not going to be willing to do that. That's going to be something if he could, but I doubt that he will, though.
And there's time to make that happen too, right? Because when's the date for the Bivol fight? December?
It's done for November 5th. That is the agreement.
I mean, you look at that. There's still time for Callum Smith to have a decent rest, get back in training camp, and jump back on that card. I mean, because the thing about it, just what of Callum Smith had just fifth round knockout he just had.
Yeah, 4th round knockout. Yep.
So it wasn't a rough fight. I mean, I granted, I understand he just came out of a training camp. I get that, but still, at this point, November fight, things like that, he got time to come back and get some rest, jump back to a training camp. Because Hearn said that he wants Callum Smith to fight again this year. So why not get him featured on that fight? What's going to be a great light heavyweight card, but could be a great light heavyweight card. And even with Callum Smith, he looked good. He looked like just observing him, looks like he had added a little muscle to his frame, things like that. He's not as lanky, things like that. So he looked good. So as you'll say, We want somebody to grow into the division once they move into a different class, things like that. And so far, Callum Smith is definitely looking good for light heavyweight. So it would be great to get him on the B-ball undercard. That would be great.
Yeah, yeah, it would be great. I'm like, yeah, get him right back in the ring. You know, you can fight somebody like a Main Fang Long or something like that. You know, Dominic Bozell, maybe. I mean, I don't know. Like, they could fit someone. I mean, this thing is gonna be in the United Arab Emirates is where they or it looks like they're kind of like setting this thing up for, you know. Um so yeah, I mean, Metro, like they said, they made that deal between Baval and Zerdo, you know. Um and like I said, it looks like it's going to be in the United Arab Emirates, according to what Jake Donovan is saying there, you know. But we'll see, how that kind of goes. With that particular fight for that WBA and the WBA version of the light heavyweight title, and of course, Bivol is just has that WBA, and Better BF has all the other belts. So yeah, this is going to be therefore, um, Bivol versus Ramirez, there for that WBA, and yeah, Callum Smith should be there. Um, let me see this thing here, man. They got Callum Smith like slated as a as a version of a world champ, but we'll see how they sort that. So WBA is like a whole mess with a whole lot of their divisions and when it comes to their world titles. So yeah, there's that. But those, like, most of the major bouts that took place there over in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. Yeah, you also had Badu Jack as part of that card, winning by split decision over Richard Rivera. Ramla Ali was part of this card, had a first round stoppage victory. Andrew Tabiti also won in this card. That was like a long, yeah, it had a whole bunch of fights in this card, man. I didn't even expect that many fights there for that, but they were able to do that. At the Jeddah Superdome in Jeddah, like I said, Alexander Usyk staying unbeaten, 20 fights, 20 victories, unified heavyweight champion. And yeah, we gotta see here, man. Tyson Fury, I guess, like Boxing Academic says, man, Tyson Fury should be, licking his chops to try to go ahead and face Alexander Usyk for the undisputed heavyweight titles, because I mean, with somebody that's a guy that could, fight orthodox and fight southpaw, has foot movement, has the reach and the size to really give someone like Usyk problems. So it's like, I don't know why it kind of like seems like he really doesn't want to fight Alexander Usyk at this point, but we're gonna find out probably by the end of this week if Tyson Fury does end up giving or vacating that WBC title. So we'll see how that goes. But going into the one of the other events there for last night, the one that I was in attendance for over in Hollywood, Florida, Seminole Hard Rock Hotel. Of course, it was scheduled to be Adrian Broner and Omar Figueroa Jr., but Adrian Broner withdrew from the fight, claiming mental issues. That's what he claimed. So now you have Omar Figueroa Jr. versus Sergey Lipinets. And man, listen, I said Sergey Lipinets out here, man, he out here ending folks' careers, man. Years ago, man, he ended a career, but a guy Lamont Peterson in the DC area, and he beat up Omar Figueroa Jr. some proper, man. And Omar Figueroa just couldn't do anything in that ring. And they just went in there, man, and they said, "Hey, it's a wrap, bro. It's a wrap, bro." Like Omar Figueroa, you weren't able to do anything against Sergey Lopez in this ring, and they they just called off that fight. And after the fight, Omar Figueroa said, like, hey, I've been, doing this thing for a long time, but this it, man. Like, it's a wrap for me, man. I'm done. So, he ends his career, after about 14 years as a professional, but, had been an amateur for, a good amount of time, but been fighting since, I guess, at a real young age. So, after this is three consecutive losses for him, with the loss last year, the Abel Ramos getting stopped, and then now here against Sergey Lipinets, man, that's it. That's a wrap for him. And Sergey Lipinets, like he said, in the week leading to the fight, he's like, "Yo, I've been looking for an opportunity, and this chance opened up for him. He became a main event, took advantage of that. Said he's back down to 140. Says that's the division that he's most comfortable in. That he's back at 140. So, he's still going to be a real contender there in the 140-pound division, which is one of the deepest divisions in boxing, where you could probably name about 10 fighters in that division that are either a world champion, a former champion, or someone that could be a serious contender to be a world champ. So add Sergey Lipinets to that mix. And yeah, 140 is just stacked, man. But yeah, but Lipinets did very well here, but Omar Figueroa was just getting toasted, straight up toasted in that. And be quite honest, if he was really like that leading into this particular bout, regardless of what was going to happen, maybe Adrian Broner should have figured out a way to get to this fight. But there's, hey, that's something there.
Well, from the Figueroa side, they said that they heard that Broner had been partying, drinking, leading up to the fight, and they knew he would not make weight and things like that. So, kind of typical. And then, of course, we already know with Broner claiming mental health issues, which like these days, which is sensitivity behind mental health. You got to pay attention to that, and you have to respect that, regardless of what you feel personally, things like that. So, that is what it was. But even that fight last night, Lipinets he just beat him up. I mean, there's a lot of inside fighting, close quarters, things like that, and the Lipinets was just teeing off on him, boom, 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 and there's not a whole lot that Figueroa could do to keep him off of him. So there he's done, like you said, he's done. But even with 140, it just makes 140 even more interesting, because you think about it, about 4 or 5 years ago, prior to when when Crawford unified that division, things like that. It was a lot of good fighters in that. But once he left that division, left 140, it was kind of nondescript. Nobody really cared about 140 until people like Pro Grays. They had the tournament where it brought back some prestige back to 140. And now, fast forward, like I said, 140 is definitely a good hot division. Good names, former champions, things like that. And the thing about it, they want to fight one another. They're not hiding behind records and things like that. They want to fight one another, which we don't see in some of our other divisions that we desperately need. So good to see 140 get a good look back once again.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. I mean, and I'm looking forward to see what happens here at 140. There's another fight at 140 that I'll be talking about from this card. But before I get into that, I want to add in another guest here that is coming back for yet another live podcast. Thankful for him to join in here. His brother Clever in the building. What's going on?
Hey, BZ, what's up, company? Thanks for having me, man. Thanks for having me. Just been talking this boxing and been reviewing it all day with some others and now you guys. But just hearing Figueroa, those last comments, yeah, man. Yeah, he looked pretty shot, didn't he? He looked pretty shot. Perhaps even go back down to 135 if he can make the weight, man, because he's got no zip on the punches up at buck 40. And just listening to Terrell there, there's just almost no room for him up there, man. As far as the talent goes, those guys would all beat him. So felt pretty. I don't want to say I felt bad for him. Just he was really looking forward to the Adrian Broner fight because he felt like he could capitalize on such a talent like that, given all the issues that are going with him. So that was a tough watch, man. But I enjoyed the rest. Showtime knows how to do it. I see you, Steven. I see you.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know about the thing with Figueroa. I think he was looking forward to that Broner fight because that was a high profile. Well, kind of like was viewed as a high profile fight. Of course, Broner is a four division world champion. And still had interest, not just inside the ring but outside the ring. So you would have kind of like said that, hey, I want to score a win over Adrian Broner, but score a definitive win over Adrian Broner. Then that would have jolted the career there for Omar Figueroa Jr., especially with him, coming off of two losses, those two previous losses, the one to Yordenis Ugas in 2019, and then the one last year where he was just flat out toasted by Abel Ramos there in that one, and ended up getting stopped there in that bout. So he wanted to try to see if he could get back in it, get down to the 140-pound division, and he was like preparing for someone like Adrian Broner, but Adrian Broner being out of the fight, and now it's Sergey Lipinets, and for me, I thought going into this, it would have been like a more, better matchup as far as like, what you could do as far as like if you win, you could have a little bit of a standing in the 140-pound division. But Lipinets, they said, hey man, I'm back at 140. This is like my my best weight. I'm hitting folks with sharp punches, sharp power punches, and he was just hurting that dude. And like I said, man, that thing reminded me of when Lipinets was in there, against against Peterson. I was like, oh man, this here ain't looking all too good, man. I was like, oh, and he ended up stopping Lamont Peterson there at 147, but we know what happened. He almost got to a good point there at 147, where he had to fight against Castillo Clayton, but that fight ended up being a majority draw. So you really didn't have like a bona fide number one contender there from that fight between Lipinets and Clayton. And he still ended up fighting Boots Ennis last year. And we saw what happened against Boots Ennis.
The guys are just too big at 47 for him.
Yeah,
The guys who are cutting weight to be at that weight. That's why Regis. I always say this. Regis is smart. We all want him. We hate on him being at a $140. Sorry, interrupting you, Jay, but he's going to stay at 140, man, because he feels he's got the best advantage there. Everyone at 47 is a little too big, or i.e. tough fight. So, but when Lipinets got the nod for the Figueroa fight, I said, oh, no, Lipinets, I don't care what y'all say. Like, he's going to beat Omar. And for the record, if you guys remember, I had Omar beating AB. I didn't think AB, given that I've seen from him over the course of the last couple of years, I was like, he's in no condition or mindset to beat someone who will be in his face like Omar and who's hungry to fight him. So hats off to both those guys, man. And again, hats off to Showtime because they put on a really good card, man. Really good fights last night. Really good fight. You were there, right, Jay? I
was there. I was there. He had like a good amount of fights up there. Like I said, since I was watching the thing for Usyk-Joshua too, I only get there before the Showtime card kind of like started. I got there when Chief Overton had his fights going on or whatnot. So
wow.
So I was only able to like watch 5 of those fights. So I'll revisit one particular fight that was on the undercard that I was like really surprised about. And yeah, that man, I'm telling you, it's somewhere I'm like, how did this fight happen? How did one particular fighter like go through with it? But I'll get into that later. But yeah, the thing with Figueroa Jr. Lipinets, just eventually broke down Omar Figueroa Jr. in that fight. And then the fight before that, in the co-feature bout, to be quite honest, even though this was like, for a vacant WBA super lightweight title, I thought this was going to be the second bout in that 4-fight card that they had for Showtime. I actually thought that Gutierrez versus Garcia was going to be the co-feature, but it ended up being Alberto Puello versus Batir Akhmadov. And in that one, like, Puello looked like he was of course, looked like he visibly was a better boxer, but Akhmadov was coming in there with pressure over the course of that particular fight. And that fight went through 12 rounds, and the scorecards had like a split decision, 115, what it was, like 115, 113 for Akhmadov, and two scores of 117, 111 for Alberto Puello for him to win that WBA super lightweight title. And those in attendance at the arena felt like Akhmadov won that fight. They felt like the pressure from Akhmadov was, enough and effective enough for him to, get the win. But hey, I mean, Akhmadov just, falls a little bit short here against Alberto Puello, and so you have like him as Puello as a world champion. They're from the Dominican Republic, and also the thing with Hector Luis Garcia winning his bout before that. But we'll get into that a little bit here. But that Puello Akhmadov, yeah, man. Woo! I'm looking at these. I'm like, Alberto Puello. Ooh, maybe you were clever. Maybe you're right about the thing with Regis Prograis, because I'm sorry. I feel like Regis Prograis could beat Puello. I think he
Oh
could.
yeah. Oh yeah. Off top.
Yeah.
Off top. Off top. Come on.
There's another fighter that's in the rankings that I kind of talked with his promoter, Shojan Ergashev. That's Demetrius Salida's guy.
I like that guy.
He's a solid fighter too. And we do have, of course, Gary Antoine Russell that scored his win over Barthélemy. Barthélemy was in the arena too for this fight card. But
Oh, he was?
yeah, they had a
Okay.
number of fighters in there, just off the cuff there. Like I said, Rancho Barthélemy, Rolly Romero was there. Dennis Ugas was there. Few other fighters were there. Legends. Michael Moore was in attendance for this joint.
Oh, nice.
So they had
That's a great
they
match.
had a few folks in there. There would have been a number of more folks in there if Adrian Broner.
Oh yeah.
came
Oh
through,
yeah.
of course. But it's still a good number of fighters that stopped by in the Miami or Fort Lauderdale area for this fight card. But yeah,
Let me ask you
Puello,
this, Jay. Let me
yeah.
ask you this, Jay. Is there any news about a return of Adrian Broner? I know he pulled out of the fight. Did he have anything to back that up? Like, I'd be fighting
Nah,
next year or anything like that?
I'm gonna
Okay.
be. The thing that y'all talking about in reference to Adrian Broner leading into this fight, and the thing is, Broner kind of like posted this on his social media that he was still had to work a good little bit in order for him to try to make weight. He was off like fairly considerably. So, he was not ready for that fight. He was not. So eventually they would have probably said, "Hey, that fight wasn't going to happen and whatnot." But I felt like because of that, now Figueroa had to adjust to fighting somebody that was a little bit fresher in Lipinets, and you all see what turned out with that. But with Adrian Broner, like I don't know, and it's like some. I'll just put it this way: there's something that tells me that if he does come back, whether it's this year or not, I would be surprised on multiple fronts.
Well, like I keep saying, man, he needs something easy. I mean, I'm talking walking. I'm talking Abby Yerby, man. Like easy.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Could you see them putting him in a Lipinets fight or something like that? Something that
No. I said Avni Yerman, like easy, man. Someone who can just beat up and walk out.
I'm saying, do you see the fact that so all these fighters are commodities? They use them for what they can get from them. Some fighters they value more, because of whatever reason. But do you think Adrian Broner is getting closer to the side of being only a commodity and them caring less for his welfare, seeing that, he is costing them money in a sense?
Academic, that's fair, but the contradictory hard line in that statement is that Adrian Broner still draws, man. You still pay $50 to watch him fight, so he brings that. So what I mean by that is I think he's going to be fine going forward until otherwise.
Well, I tell you what, as much as you say, bring him back against someone easy, I think I'm pretty sure it'd be a problem with his financial demand for that fight.
I disagree because I think he deserves it. He's a 4-time champion, unified, and then this is gonna sound, or not. I don't want to sound that. Just by recognition flow, he would get a title shot if he petitioned for it.
Well,
that's just what it is, man. Or dare I say, boxing politics.
I disagree with that. I'll disagree with that.
Okay. That's all right.
Which part? He said a lot of stuff.
Well, the part about Broner, being an attractive guy enough to where, he could kind of like still to a certain extent call shots in a division that he's in. Like even with this fight that he had scheduled with Omar Figueroa, the math wasn't mathing when it came to the sales. I'm just being straight up. Like I can't, like this stuff that even with me covering, like this stuff that I can't sugarcoat. And I'm telling you, the tickets weren't moving for this fight, but that would have been between Adrian Broner and Omar Figueroa Jr. It was not attractive enough to the point where people were saying, yeah, okay, it's Adrian Broner. I'm going to see Adrian Broner. Yeah, that like the card itself really didn't like say, hey, like have a good number of fighters that would have been, attractive to probably like, fans that, we could deal with or we interact with. Of course, Clever, we know a couple people that know of those guys like Hector Luis Garcia or Alberto Puello. Like they would know those guys. But on the flip side, there's a good number of people that don't know who they are that do watch the sport of boxing. So like you're gonna put it in like, Hollywood, Florida or something like that, where if it was somebody like Adrian Broner that hasn't really been active and has kind of like, not really been in the spotlight since the Manny Pacquiao fight in 2019, I would have just said, hey, let's see if we could put him back in the hometown type of fight. Put him in Cincinnati or put him in somewhere in Ohio, put him in Toledo or something like that and have a card with him headlining the card and bring the fans over there to Ohio.
I was about to say the location didn't help him.
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't respond to that, Jay. I would just say that's because Steven and company and Showtime and the handlers they're thinking otherwise of where they want to put them, respectively, and where they could, be a draw. I think they've been working on things like that, doing things differently for the better part of the whole entirety of the pandemic since. They've just been working stuff. Think about the Sunday boxing matchups, think about unknown locations, think about trying things like that. But also um, I would say either in the DMV area or Vegas. I mean, and then when to throw some more specifics on there,
Well,
kind of do the East.
that would have been a much better area. Like I would have had no issues if it was like somewhere in the DMV area. But it would have probably been in somewhere like Baltimore World Farms Arena or something like that. I would have thought that it could have been in MGM National Harbor, but I have not seen any boxing event at MGM National Harbor to a certain level ever since things have started back up. And MGM National Harbor is like they've had a good number of fights there. You've seen Gary Russell Jr. fight there. You've seen Alexander Usyk, Vasily Lomachenko fight there. You've seen Devin Haney fight there. A number of others, but I think it got to a certain point where the people at MGM National Harbor said, "Hey, I could have somebody like a Bruno Mars or a comedian or a well-known comedian over there on those Saturdays and probably pull more than I am for getting these boxing matches in there." So I'm not sure like when they're gonna have like boxing matches.
What about Atlantic City?
Atlantic City, yeah, they got a good number of venues out there for it. So
And
maybe
then real fast, I was also throwing like specifics, like just like peak viewership. I still think Broner would bring the eyeballs to the telly. I mean, anybody and everybody who, when we brought up Broner just before he decided to pull out, we were talking about this fight. Even like people like myself who weren't necessarily too crazy about or interested in the fight.
Well, think about a few months ago when Connor Ben, they were mentioning fighting Broner, bring him over there to fight him. How good would that have been for him? And they stated that once again, Broner priced himself out despite their statement that they gave him a great offer. Everything. That would have been a great opportunity for Broner. And what I'm thinking would have been good money as well. And that would have paid him his value in terms of being a former champion, things like that, in terms of his resume and things like that. And now look when we fast forward now, Conor Ben's moving up 2 weight classes to face Chris Eubank Jr.
I want to respond to that too, Terrell. I don't mind that, sir, too much. The issue I do have with that, and the reason why Broner has always negatively responded to such notions or suggestions with the Conor Ben stuff, is that we all know that's not how they do business. I'll lump in ESPN. Those guys give a flat rate up front, and I don't want to speak for Al, but that's always a no from the PPC side. That's an always no.
Well, yeah, from
always.
That's
just not how they won't accept that deal, man. That's not how. So I'm not trying to totally shoot down your idea. That's just I'm shooting it down, man. Like that would never happen because that's just not how they do business, man, at all. That they don't mind sending their fighters over there. Of course, the price is right, and if it's whatever advantage or risk or reward, whatever you want to call it. But as far as a big profile name like Adrian, who, like Jay is saying, probably couldn't command as much force, but still enough has been paid well throughout his career. That's a no. That's all
right.
Broner doesn't benefit from that fight outside of what you said, Clever. He don't benefit from it. It don't make sense to take that fight. The same way it doesn't make sense for Keith Thurman to take a Boots fight. Keith Thurman don't benefit from that.
Yeah, and he kind of like said that, at the, being there on site over in Hollywood last night. So hopefully I may get in contact with him to talk a little bit more about that. That would be a good little thing to get a little interview with Keith Thurman in the near future. But before I go into a little bit more on that card, you might have a little bit of a pause because I have someone on here that wants to speak on something, has like a lot to say, hopefully, about one particular person.
Uh-oh.
He had like a classic rant on a particular promoter some months ago. So I'm expecting him to have another rant, but this time we're not going to be talking about a nondescript Chinese Russian, but maybe he'll come up with
My
a name
knucka.
for this other fighter. But Mr. MVO is in the building, and I think he does have something to say.
First of all, what is with this jabroni panel again? Okay, you got not clever, you got the boxing unacademic, and you have a chef on the panel. What is going on with my great boxing source show? We used to have luminaries like world rank. We used to have guys like that who knew a little something about boxing. Now we got these jabronis on the show. Okay. Second of all,
Matt, you
Edwin,
2 hours
Don't call
in.
me a
You
jabroni.
2 hours in.
That was rude.
Watching wrestling. Don't come
Edwin
in here.
Hearn. Edwin
Don't come in here
Hearn.
for us.
He's done it again. He's done it again. This man has
You call me a
allowed.
jabroni.
This man has allowed the heavyweight championship to be in some war-torn Eastern European country. What is going on here? Why? JR? You gotta be able to tell me what was the first of all, they fought all the way in Saudi Arabia. Arabia, where the men wear less clothing than the women. What is going on in these parts? Okay. There was no buzz in the crowd. The ring was a fucking slip and slide. Okay. The ring was a slip and slide. How would you expect Anthony Joshua to generate any power on his punches when he can't even sit down and he'll fall like the Chinaman did? Did you see the Chinaman do a whole split?
That guy was robbed.
That
guy was robbed. He was robbed. That guy was robbed.
A 6'6",
That was muffed up,
270-pound Chinese dude doing
a split.
By the way, that guy's like 45. He's not 39. That guy's like 45, maybe even 50. That guy's
bugging me, man.
old.
This is just bugging me. So now we have to deal with Usyk. I guess people say he's the number 1 or number 2 heavyweight. I don't see it. I think we already saw the 2 best heavyweights fight. That was Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder. Okay, to me, if you look at yesterday's fight, that was a battle for who's number 3, because I was not impressed. I was not impressed at all. I was not impressed with either one's performance. Neither guy was willing to go out on his shield to get the job done. Okay. It was like, okay, it's your turn. Okay, it's my turn. Okay, it's your turn. Okay, it's my turn. That's all it was. It was like safety first boxing. Yesterday was kind of the sweet science, and I hate the sweet science. When I see heavyweights, I'm looking to see big, beefy men bumping meat. And we did not see a lot of meat bumping in that fight. We did not see a lot of meat bumping in that fight.
Meat, huh?
Okay. We didn't see it.
My boy, clean that up, please.
There's nothing to clean up. I said what I said. I like to see big, beefy men bumping meat. Okay. And that is not what I saw. Okay. I saw a safety first. I saw a boxing match. Okay. The only thing that saved that event yesterday was the full-on meltdown that Anthony Joshua had. That was the only thing that saved that event. This guy, he honestly, he had like a Ric Flair moment. You know when Ric Flair would go crazy in the ring and start taking off his clothes and then like elbow dropping his
elbow
suit.
drop his jacket.
Yeah. that was Anthony Joshua yesterday. You know, it was crazy. It was funny too. I mean, that is gonna live forever. I have never, ever, ever seen anything like that in a post fight before. Never seen anything like that.
Yeah, man.
He threw the belts out the ring.
But you know what though? Actually disappointed you. Because even after all of that, even after him storming out the ring, he actually turned around and came back and he did a speech in the ring. And then he had like a little bit of a thing in the post-fight press conference
where he started crying like a little bitch.
Oh, come on, man. At least
he was crying?
At least he didn't say.
He was literally crying.
Yeah, he cried.
Oh, wait. So this is what he should have said
I didn't know
in the
that.
post-fight press conference. He should have said that, you know what? I was dealing with a crab in the bucket referee and a disloyal.
Hey,
he had a Dak.
No, but what
moment? He had a Dak. No.
But what about the part where he used to face and said, "How did you beat me? I'm big and strong. You have skill. You shouldn't beat me." That made no sense at all. I almost made him a sense of a sore loser.
Listen, all I know is this man cried, and Eddie Hearn said, Eddie Hearn, he was crying too, but not tears. He was like, "Oh, you know, look who you fought. You fought this guy and this guy and this guy back to back to back. No, I'm gonna talk about it. No one else is doing that. You know what else? You know what else is doing? No one else is running away from their rival. Okay, Anthony Joshua, punk ass, the English muffin, has spent years running away from his rival Deontay.
Here we go. Here we go with the propaganda.
So I don't give a damn who he fought. He didn't fight Deontay Wilder. He didn't fight Deontay Wilder. And
propaganda. Here we go.
He didn't fight Tyson Fury either. Why is it that this guy cannot make the big fights with his rivals? Is everybody the problem?
Hearn.
Yeah, right. I think it's Eddie Hearn trying to protect him. He was like, I just want to see you happy, AJ. I just want to see you happy. People don't know what you've been going through. Nobody gives a damn what you've been going through. Okay, AJ? I thought you were the landlord. Rent is due, motherfucker. And Usyk should have been evicted yesterday, but you couldn't do it. Could you? You couldn't do it.
Oh, like Deontay Wilder could have checked out Tyson Fury, but he couldn't do it.
Hey, listen, that's all part of the plan.
He's pretty close.
Exactly. At least Deontay Wilder.
Two counts. If they were a regular second, you know, it might have been a different story.
If at least Deontay Wilder was willing to get knocked out to go for his. Anthony Joshua was not willing to do that. Anthony Joshua, all he did was cover up. That's all he did. All he did was cover up. All he did was cover up. I thought he was trying to put on earmuffs. All he did was cover up. That was sad to see. So sad to see.
And if only Usyk had more power, it would have been a different story yesterday. I mean, that round when where Usyk just dominated him, boom, 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 shot after shot after shot after shot. If Usyk had more power, it'd be a different story by now.
Exactly. You got peppered by this Neanderthal, okay, who has no power, no power at all. Listen, honestly, I don't know how anyone can root for Anthony Joshua after this. He was fighting a dude with a center ponytail. What was up with that wig piece that Usyk was sporting? And you let that guy beat you? Come on, man. This is
Well, let's put it
embarrassing.
this way. At least he said two big beefy men bumping meat instead of two big beefy men slapping meat. Because if he would have said meat, oh man, I probably would have canceled the show. I would have fell out.
And let me ask you a question. How many times do we have to hear about Anthony Joshua being a fake drug dealer? He got caught with an ounce of weed. Like, stop it. You're not Breaking Bad. You're not Pablo Escobar. You got caught with an ounce of weed. Okay? Stop acting like you were some big hard drug dealer who had some empire and then you decided to turn your life around. Because if you was making real money from selling weed, we would have never heard of you in boxing. So stop it.
Oh God.
It's a phony.
See, this is what I'm talking. And people, and this guy right here claims that I am the biggest Deontay
You
Wilder
are.
in the planet. Come on. I don't go in nowhere near as you do for Anthony Joshua.
I
don't
just tell
do
the
that.
truth.
No.
I just tell the truth.
Wait, Jay.
I tell the truth too. What are you
Wait,
talking
Jay.
about?
I
Jay.
tell the truth.
What's up,
Jay,
Clever?
you don't like Deontay? Not much.
I didn't say that I don't like Deontay. I am a constructive critic
Oh my
of
God.
fighters.
Here we go.
Okay.
Here we
Okay.
go.
And if I see flaws in Deontay Wilder, I point them out. If you point out flaws so that the fighter can recognize the flaws, then he could improve on those flaws and become a better fighter. But MVO claims that with me pointing out those flaws, that I am a hater.
Because you be lying.
Oh, yeah.
Okay?
You got
And
the clever
so-
treatment. You get the clever treatment. Okay. Yeah.
So if that's the case, then on October 15th, when Deontay Wilder faces Robert Helenius at the Barclays Center, if I make it to the Barclays Center, then there will be a special appearance at that fight. I'll just put it that way.
Listen, all I know.
Oh, you go. You go.
All I know is if you make it to that fight, you better hope you make it out. Once I tell all the people in the crowd who you are and what you stand for.
Who you really are.
You better,
Don't think we
better
don't know
hope-
who you
better-
are.
You better hope you make it out. I'm gonna tell them all what you stand for. Guy's the biggest hater ever heard of.
Now you got to say it like Crystal.
Nobody's gonna say I'm a turncoat. He gonna point me out and say I'm a turncoat.
Yeah, yeah, man. It's crazy to me. Like Joshua fought better, but Usyk fought worse. Like I don't know. I just didn't feel like I was watching the two best heavyweights. I'm sorry. Like even if you say Tyson Fury's retired, I didn't see anybody in that ring that's better than Deontay Wilder.
I would have liked to see the Asian guy versus Joshua. That guy was garbage.
What's your problem, JR? What's your problem, JR?
Okay.
Because he riding Usyk.
He riding Usyk ponytail.
There you go.
Boy.
He riding Usyk ponytail.
Nah, boy. I am like I said, a constructive critic. And I am an analyst of the sport of boxing.
In the words of LeVar Ball, you are a hater.
Come on.
Who do you say that to? Christine Leahy? Who do you say that to?
Oh man. No, you know who a hater of Deontay Wilder is, and that is Charles. Because you know that I would pick Deontay Wilder against the vast majority of the heavyweight division. He won't do that. So there you go. Oh man.
You know,
I need to make a bet with him again on this fight.
I wanted Usyk to win because I thought Usyk would have the courage to fight Deontay Wilder. But even he said in his post-fight that he doesn't want to fight the great Deontay Wilder. And I was very disappointed for that. He is also a coward.
Oh my God! Here we go.
He's a coward. What is it about Deontay
I'm just,
Wilder that none of these
I'm
dudes
just
want to fight him?
glad, Matt. I'm just glad the heavyweight belts didn't end up with Eddie Hearn again, because he would have held those things for hostage over some bullshit. So,
Wow.
yeah,
The only
just happy about that.
now the thing about that Clever, and I kind of like said this to a certain extent. If Anthony Joshua won those titles, that deal with DAZN would have had him locked for a good amount of time, and it would have made it a lot more difficult for him to make fights with Deontay Wilder and with Tyson Fury, because a lot more money would have been involved with that. That was my lone takeaway of is Anthony Joshua won against Alexander Usyk.
Well, you got that Twig boy. Coming out. Oh well, we'll make fights with other promoters. So hey, whatever he is, extra vice president. I don't know.
MBO knows how I feel about that guy ever since we saw him out there in Madison Square Garden for the Joshua Miller press conference.
Yes,
And
Joe Markowski is the most disheveled executive I've ever seen in my life. Like,
well, the best
is
Steven.
Like,
who cares?
He always looks like he just got out of bed.
I'll say this straight up: Espinoza is many levels over Joe Markowski, regardless of what Joe Markowski has done for the DAZN, for Perform Group, for Len Black Vanek. Yeah, I said it. Steven Espinoza is levels above that guy, especially when it comes to sports. Levels above.
Yes.
You know, for Black, for
Steven
Joe
actually
Markowski,
talks to us, drops nuggets.
Well, that's number one. Like what was it? Tay Jones, had an interview with him, last week.
Yeah,
but
that was
he makes himself accessible.
Good interview, by the way.
That's number one. Number two is that he pretty much like put the nail in the coffin of HBO boxing and basically HBO sports in general, by taking the time to make that investment with Showtime Boxing and convincing the people in Showtime and CBS and Viacom to actually focus on that sport.
Yep.
So that's the other thing.
And Showtime putting out great content. Come on.
Oh,
now.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So for Steven Espinoza to actually have those time slots available for boxing, given like you said, the content that Showtime has, that's a big feat. So, man, Markowski he really can't compete in that particular aspect. So
and Steven Espinoza combs his hair.
Well, he's going bald now, so it's all good. Welcome to the club, bro.
Joe Markowski need to comb his fucking hair.
Oh, look at that guy.
Yeah. So there's that, man. But that's mostly what I wanted to go through. There's action next week. I really ain't kind of like on that. MBO, anything about the retirement of Omar Figueroa?
Yo, I hope this does not mean that we're going to see less of Omaira, his hot sister. Okay. Omar can go. He can't fight. He was never a good boxer. We just wanted to see his sister. But I did put out a poll on Twitter that I would like to get the panel's answer to. Which father trainer loves seeing his son get the hell beat out of him the most? Omar Figueroa Sr. or Gabriel Flores Sr.? Because they will watch their sons get their asses beat.
Guerrero.
He said Guerrero.
Yeah,
What?
yeah, yeah. I agree with that. Those guys are still young. Well, not Omar. Not Omar. Omar's done. Yeah, like, oh, man. He didn't even have any zip on the punches, man.
None.
I don't
He
know
had
what that
none.
was.
Yeah, he had none. He had
Why the hell was Brian Custer saying that Omar Figueroa had a great career? Did I miss something?
Hey, man, that guy's
Hey, they had
he's a
yeah,
newsman. He's a newsman.
they had him take the place of Mauro Ronaldo.
I want to meet Brian Custer.
Here, you know. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. Oh yeah, I was supposed to talk about the thing for those other two fights that were part of that card. Hector Luis Garcia, you know, getting that win over Roger Gutierrez. He just pretty much like outboxed that dude.
Yeah,
For
but
like,
he's food. He's food.
yeah, he is. He is.
He's food. Because you saw, as soon as Gutierrez turned up, that boy Garcia looked like he was ready to fold.
Yeah.
He looked like he was ready to fold. He's lucky that Gutierrez had either a bad strategy or just couldn't get going early.
Yeah, he couldn't get going.
Yeah. He fight somebody like Shakur, please.
Oh yeah, please. Come on.
Yeah.
Shakur gonna tune his ass up.
Yeah, he's toast.
He won't be able to hit him, man. He won't ever be able to hit him, man.
You know,
And Garcia's got to beat Chris Colbert, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, he's definitely not ready for Shakur. Not at all.
Yeah, he's food.
Like, I mean, they're gonna keep him away from that. And man, that first fight, man, I said when Wilbur Derrick pretty much hit man down. Oh my God! How did they? No, if it was in New York, that fight would have been stopped.
Yo, he got cracked.
He got cracked. That dude, he did a stop, drop, and roll on the canvas. Okay? I was like, yo, he got cooked. I don't.
He was on fire.
I still can't believe. I know that I had talked with him after the fight. You know, talked with him for about a minute or so. But yeah, I still can't figure out how he was able to get through that and go through the rest of that fight. As he got cracked with that shot.
That was a hard shot. If Wilmer Derrick could actually punch, I think he would have been knocked out cold.
Yeah, he would have been knocked out cold.
Because that guy didn't even have a lot of power.
Yeah.
He's food too. And listen, everybody that was on that card last night is food. I'm sorry. Every single one of them. Every single one of them.
I agree, Matt. I agree, sir. I agree.
I didn't like the way Pollo looked either.
Oh, no. He looked the worst out of all of them to me. He looked the worst out of all of them to me. Polo guy, he looked the worst out of all. I was like, oh man, no.
Like they thought those people in the crowd thought Akhmadov won that fight. You know?
Yeah, but you can't.
It was close. It was close. It was really close, man.
You can't give the decision to these war-torn countries. The judges did the right thing. Okay.
Hey, Puello reminds me of Rigondeaux with how sharp he throws his punches, like with how much snap he put on them.
Who was that academic?
I said Puello reminds me of Rigondeaux with like how much speed, velocity he throws his punches with. Like from point A to point B, it's some fast punches. They may not be strong, but the fact that how fast he throw them, adds to the force of the punches.
Yeah.
I wouldn't disrespect Rigo with that.
Yeah. But I mean, like you were saying, man, Puello's food, man, I'm looking at, I'm like, yo, you got
Don't tell Broadway that though, Jay.
I know.
Because when I was watching
for a little bit.
When I was watching Puello fight, I was just thinking, how stupid is Josh Taylor that he relinquished the belt instead of taking that's easy.
Yeah, that's a stupid man, right? It's a stupid man. Stupid. Yeah, no. You know what, Matt? That's what you call a coward. That guy's a coward. I love Josh Taylor. Like I like him inside the ring, but like, dog, you dropping belts because like you things are getting too expensive. you could move up and fight those champions right now and get your payday, dog. They're like, you stupid, man. Stupid.
We all know he is not fighting. Listen, he thought the 147 belts would be broken up by now. That's why he was talking shit.
He could still. I'm just saying, like he, you know, just by him being the top champion, super champion, he could petition and move up and fight those guys.
Yes, but
and I'm
that
just
would
saying
mean
for
that
his
he would have to fight Crawford or Spence. He doesn't want to do that.
exactly. That's big money. I'm just saying because he dropped it because of money. That's what he's saying. I saw what his statement that he released. Things are getting too expensive. Well, move up and fight and get some real money.
Yeah,
that's what I would do.
Wow.
Yeah, but he wouldn't do that. He wants to go through that rematch again with Jack Catterall. Okay, cool. Now if he gets cooked again,
Collateral damage.
you know,
No, he won, Jay. He beat that guy. He beat that guy, man. He beat that guy.
What are you talking about?
He beat him. That's what I'm talking about. What are y'all talking about?
Oh, please.
Jack didn't do anything after maybe the 8th round because he got hit with some mad body shots. His whole punch output went down. He lost the last rounds, man. He didn't do anything.
He swept like
that's why Josh won.
He swept like the first 7 to 8 rounds.
No, he did not. Maybe the first 4. Maybe the
Whatever.
first 4. Maybe the 5. No, yeah, all right, shit. All right, let him get beat again, and y'all gonna be mad again. Let him get beat again. Y'all gonna be mad again.
Oh
Watch.
man, but yeah, man, yeah, that the rest of his 140 division is food, man. I mean, you got. I'm just waiting for the joint for Ponce versus Matias, so
yeah,
Matias can win that one. What did they say? The Zepeda Prograis fight. I'm waiting for that. It's gonna be a good little scrap, but yeah, outside of that, man, yeah, those Puyo's food, man. Oh my gosh, put him in there against Antoine right now. How about that? Yeah,
I know, right? Antoine beat his ass.
He beat him.
You
talk about the pressure of Batir Akhmadov. How about the pressure of Gary Antoine?
Exactly.
Against Puyo. Yeah, let's set that up. Man, that 140-pounder business is nuts, man.
Gary Antoine about to get that shot real soon.
Wow.
Yeah, he will. Speaking of Russell, man, our guy Boog Williams said that Antonio Russell might be in line for a final eliminator. And he said like that final eliminator in the bantamweight division would be there for him. But my thing is that how could he be part of the thing for a WBA eliminator when there was somebody in there that was ranked above him? But here's the problem. That person that was above him was Rau'shee Warren, and he took a fight on his card last night that was a 6-round fight, and he ended up losing the fight.
Good. He needs to lose. Who gives a shit about Rau'shee Warren?
I'm like, he lost by
no one does, but I like Rashid
against Francisco Portillo
Warren solid
in a 6-round bout. How are you having a 6-round bout when you're supposed to be a top-rated contender in the bantamweight division? You beat Damian Vasquez by a 2nd-round KO, puts you in this position, and you go up against a guy that's 17-11-2 and lose.
Well, I don't want to talk about anybody's finances. I don't know his finances, but maybe he's not doing too good with his money. Because to me, you must have just took that fight for money to make a quick buck.
I mean, there's something, because you just came off a high a year ago with that 2nd-round KO win, over Damian Vasquez. So, like, what did you do in between that time, man? Like, yo, that's like, come on, man.
Funny,
I don't understand it, but yeah, that that's probably one of the biggest head scratches right there. For him to take a fight like that, that's a 6-round bout, and you end up losing. Oh boy, yeah. Oh well, you
Yep,
know.
it is what it is.
Yep. Uh, yeah, I really didn't go over the fight card in San Diego really, and yeah.
There was another fight card. No,
Yeah, I heard
I'm not
Navarrete was
joking. I'm
getting beat
serious.
up.
Huh?
Navarrete fought?
Yeah.
Oh shit! Did he win?
He won by KO. He was losing every round, but he got hit.
Oh,
By us with a body shot, and he I guess he folded him like a omelet.
yeah, that's crazy. I didn't even know Navarrete was back.
Wait, wasn't Baez? He fought Reese Salim last year on the Brendan Figueroa and Steph Fulton card. That guy.
Yep.
That's what I thought I saw him. So he moved up in weight.
Yeah.
Crazy.
He did. Yeah, he did. Earlier this year, he had a fight. He had a fight against Enrique Vivas and won by majority decision. I guess that's how we got to this spot, against Navarrete. So, but he said he was doing his thing, against Navarrete, and then got caught with a body shot, and that was all she wrote with that one, So, but yeah, man,
Navarrete should fight Shakur, right? After this fight.
Nah,
he
needs a couple more fights, in my opinion.
Yeah, he does.
I wouldn't be surprised to put him back in against Oscar Valdez, was what they wanted last year. But Navarrete, he just looked
Oscar Valdez might beat him though, Terrell.
Yeah, but I mean, remember that's what they wanted prior to serving Valdez up to Shakur and everything. So until things like that happened, but like I said, Navarrete he didn't have his usual high punch output. He was just in there until he got caught with that body shot.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I looked at that. I was like, hey, maybe Navarrete was having an off night or something up to that point, or whatever. So, hey.
But his heresy is very unorthodox. Excuse me. Like the way how he does things that you're not supposed to do and gets away with them, and he just fights in an awkward style. So, who knows?
Yeah, man.
Where was that fight? Oh, it's in San Diego. Yeah.
Yeah, San Diego. So yeah, man. A lot of stuff that was going down as far as like boxing action yesterday. So a lot to catch up with able to cover as much as it could on that. Gonna be some action later on. On Saturday. So I'm gonna see how that goes there over in Oklahoma City. But yeah, outside of that,
Jared Big Baby.
Yeah,
he'll beat Hrgovic right now. They should feed him to him. He'll beat Hrgovic.
That would be a really, really, really good scrap right now. I would really love to see a fight like that. I would really love to see a fight like that. That would be something there.
But Hrgovic sucks, man. I think Big Baby, yes, no doubt.
Yeah, Hrgovic is food, but something tells me that that Top Rank might serve Efe Ajagba over to Jared Anderson before.
See, that's messed up.
I know it is, but I'm sensing that happening. I really am. Like, they really ain't doing much, moving much with Efe Ajagba, after his loss. I mean, this is like his first fight since losing to Frank Sanchez. So it's kind of like looking like all directions are leaning towards Ajagba and Jared Anderson fighting. You also had like a couple, those young fighters there, Delonte Johnson, Tiger Johnson there, and he's going to be in action in this fight card. on on Saturday. Kelvin Davis is going to be on that card. Abdullah Mason's going to be on that card. Shoot, they got Hayden Brady back on this card after about a month. They having him
Oh, wow.
in. Yeah.
Bob's
so,
like, I do rep black fighters. That's a word, man. That's word. That is
was it Abdullah Mason? Abdullah Mason's on this card. They got a good number of fights on this thing, man. Like they got let's see,
Get you.
One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, like 11 fights total on this card in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So, man, they try to do everything they can in this joint, man. But yeah, that's what I got here in this.
They always have good
man.
fights there.
Thanks for everybody to jump in on this live conversation. It's always going to be available on demand, through iTunes, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, whatever you use for your, listening to podcasts, it's going to be available there. And like I said at the end of every show, folks, point of boxing is a hit and not get hit. Not just hit and trade. On that note, folks, I'm out. Have a good evening, everybody.